All right, great. Thanks, Ron. Everybody, thanks for coming out this morning on our Sunday, carving out some time. Of course, our mission here, as Ron says, spurring men to a closer walk with God. So again, let's just dig in here. This is the agenda for today. I'll go through that real quick. I'm going to talk about a table leader role. I'm going to talk about the goal of a table leader, maybe some primary functions that the table leader embraces. And then I'm going to get into the table leader weekly cadence. And I call it that because it's kind of a life in a week of a table leader. What does that look like? You know, throughout the whole week as a table leader, as you're going through one thing, what does that look like in your life as a table leader? So I kind of talk about the pregame routine, that time before the Friday morning, the game day routine, the big show on Friday morning, and then, of course, the postgame. What happens after we are done with one thing on Friday? So I'll go through that. We're going to take a quick break at that point, right, so we can refill coffees, get some bagels over there in the bar area. And then I'm going to come back with table dynamics, and it's going to be the who's who. That'll make sense once I get there. We'll have some fun with that. And then managing the time, that kind of speaks for itself. I'll probably focus just as much time on the last item, table dynamics, as I do on the beginning part here. So that's actually a pretty good break point between the two. All right, so let's get going here, get to see if all this works. All right, so let's start off. Table leader role, right? As a table leader, my role is, and let's talk about this, the goal is provide a well-rounded, truth-grounded, quality experience every week, every table, every time, right? So we want to make sure that if a guy goes and sits at Kirby's table, I'll just pick on you, Kirby, they get a quality experience that week. If they sit at my table that week, they get the same quality experience, whoever it is, right, Aaron, they're going to get that same quality experience week after week, every single time. That's really our goal as table leaders, to set the stage, and again, consistency is key. All right, let's talk through some of these primary functions. Well, we want intimacy with God, servants of Christ, stewards of the truth, and how do we do that? Well, that's being students of the Word, right? Encouragement for our ministry, communicators of our why, we want to invite many, and serve well in your ministry at the table. So I'm going to pause right here, just get a little more interactive versus me just kind of going through the drill and you guys hearing me talk the whole time. I'd like to kind of pause and ask you guys, what does intimacy with God look like to you? Does anybody want to take a stab at what intimacy with God, what that means to anybody on the table out here on the floor?
We're all aware of ourselves. It's hard to forget yourself. Every moment you're breathing, you're thinking, and you're aware of you, I. So similarly, we ought to develop that effort or that awareness and that relationship that every moment God is with us, in us, we're serving Him, He is sovereign, we're servants of Him, and we're lovers of Him.
Right, relationship and servants, that's perfect.
For me, intimacy with God is spending time with God on a daily basis, studying His Word to get to know Him, His character, what He wants for us so I can understand Him better, then taking that and translating that into my prayer times when I'm spending time with Him so that I understand Him at a deeper level.
Well, anybody else have any other last comments?
Intimacy with God is really just learning more about Him. It's the same thing that we do in our other intimate relationships with our wife, with our friends, with our co-workers, etc., is really getting to know Him getting to know us. And we just have to spend the time to get to do that.
Time, I mean, that's what it is, time, right? Do we spend the time needed? Let's hear from this side of the table, this side of the room. Aaron?
I mean, Ron, you've talked a lot about having bench time. I mean, for all of us, I think it's a question of first is, are we spending time in the Word, getting to know who God is, what His character is about? Are we spending time asking Him, God, conform me to your pattern rather than the pattern of the world? And we've talked a lot as leaders about, are we showing up clean? God, will you help me to, remove any barriers to intimacy? Is there anything in my life, any besetting sin, anything that I haven't confessed, any unconfessed sin that I need to just dump out here before I head in and meet with the guys, so that I'm as clean as possible and able to function as a willing vessel?
That's good. Hey, thanks, Ron. I'm gonna jump to the other. Let's go ahead and do the serve well in your ministry at the table. What does that look like to you guys here?
Spending time with your table members.
Right. That's
and
perfect.
It all comes back, and everybody's life faces a lot of issues in today's world. And knowing that they have a place that they can go and we meet as a group for lunch and hear what's happening in a person's life
That's
and
spot
how
on.
God's affecting them.
It's perfect. Walter?
I also agree with that, and I think that something I didn't start off doing when I was a table leader was send out prayer requests and praises that came from the tables on Fridays. And as I was longer in the table leader role, I felt like that was an essential to grow closer together as well as closer to God, is to be able to pray for each other and carry each other's burdens and help each other, especially through the tough times. The easy times, it's kind of, right, things go well, it's easy just to slap fives and high five and say it's a great week and stuff, but to serve well includes the tough times.
Yeah.
And that's really when the table can pray for each other. And so having those prayer requests and stuff for me, I'm so glad it started doing it, because I think it's brought us together closer as a table. And we could serve better each other by knowing each other's burdens and carrying them with them and helping grow closer to God in the journey, as well as each other.
That's great input, both of you guys. Ron, I think I'm good. I'd like to try to connect these two. There's a purpose behind them. So, being connected, intimacy with God, right, is time spent in prayer, time spent in His Word, and it's a conversation. You're having a conversation with God through your prayer, right? You're getting to know God through the Word. Well, the same thing when it comes down to serving well in your ministry, right? You're getting connected with the men at your table. You're having that conversation, right? You're getting to know them, what's going on in their lives. There's really the same type of relationship, and that's really the connection between these two. It's all about relationships with God and relationships with the men at your table, bringing it all together. So I think it's a good bookend of all our primary functions. So thanks for your input, guys, and I'm going to keep on rolling here as we go. Thanks, Ron. All right, so let's talk about the table leader weekly cadence. Again, a life in a week of a table leader. What does that typically look like? I'm going to get into that now. I'll go through the various three components of that. We have like a pregame routine, right, where it's the time leading up to the one thing. I'm using that as our example for our venue here. It could be any day of the week, the venue, but in our example, it's Friday, so it's the days leading up to that. We're going to invite, prepare, and connect. I'll talk to those. We're going to have a game day routine, what's going to happen at the day of one thing in the mornings that we have here on Fridays. We're going to do a warm-up. We're going to have some table time, and we're going to do a wrap-up. Again, I'll dig into those a little deeper here in a second. And then a post-game routine, right? We do after we're wrapped up that Friday. What do we continue with? Staying connected and pray. So I'm going to dig into each of these a little bit more, right? So let's talk about that pregame routine. What do we do as we prepare to get up to that Friday morning, the big show, right, as we call it? Let's see what that looks like. All right, so of course we want to invite all men, right? Invite friends, coworkers, your family members. The idea is no man's left behind, no man's off limits, right? We want to be able to invite those all around us in our circles and our day-to-day walk in life. We want to keep your radar up for the guy who maybe is dealing with some life challenges, right? The career challenges, marriage, children, faith, health. There's always things going on. When a guy is dealing with some change or challenges in their life, they're usually more open to get a little more connected, maybe walk with some guys, or they might even be a little more reserved to go back and not know where to reach out to. Those are really prime times, I will say, for you to maybe, walk up beside that guy and say, hey, man, why don't you just join us Friday morning? We all get to connect to talk about life challenges and issues and so on and so forth. So it's a real prime time to invite a guy to one thing when you know they're going through some things. New guy to the area. I've had this, especially at work. We have a lot of guys at Relo from different areas around the country to work, and I've had it where I say, hey, you're new to the area. We get together on Friday mornings. It's real casual. We talk about men's stuff, and would you like to join me? And they actually have typically done that, because what are they doing? They're looking for a connection. Everyone's looking to get a connection in life, and when you're new to the area, that's the time to do that, right? When you try to connect up with other guys. So again, invite all, no man left behind. All right, again, continue on the pregame routine, the days leading up to that Friday. We want to review and dig into the table leader prep, right? So every week, there's a blast that goes out for one thing to all the people on the mailing list, right? And it kind of tees it up a little bit what the topic is, some general information. While at the same time, the speaker who's going to speak that week will send out a table leader prep just to the table leaders. And again, it'll contain the scriptures, that's going to be discussed that week, maybe some insight to that. It's going to give us the questions that we're going to be facilitating at our tables, and then we get some insight from the speaker. Where are they trying to take that message? What's the driving force? Where are they trying to get the men to understand that's going to happen? That's what takes place with the prep that goes out. We want to really prepare and study that well. The rest of it is all about praying, right? We can't pray enough. I always say, pray for God to set the table with the men He wants you to be engaged with. Pray about, Lord, understand that it's your will. I want you to decide who the right people are to gather around me this week. They can connect up. So again, just turn that over to God and let God's will happen, and just get out of the way, as I always say. Pray for God to give you the ears to hear each man's heart versus just hearing the words, right? You really want to hear where they're coming from, engaging, building that relationship, right? You really got to connect with guys. It takes more than just a surface level conversation. You got to go a little deeper, and it takes a little mining to do that over time. You want to pray for the speaker as they prepare. Now, I know when I'm listening to Ron and Chris and Hutch and those who've spoken, they pour hours and hours of time preparing for that Friday morning venue. We really need to lift them up because they need to take a lot of content, boil that down to just nuggets to give out to the group so we can have, again, quality experience, get something out of it. It makes a lot of sense. Pretty heavy topics sometimes. So we need to pray them up and give them the strength to get through. And of course, we want to pray for each other, right? We're here as partners, table leaders, right? We're kind of the main core of the ministry. We want to lift each other up, of course, pray for each other. And then the last here, pray for the ministry and the guidance of the board. I can't really emphasize this enough, right? We want the ministry to go in the direction God wants to take it, right? God sets the path, and we want to make sure we're walking down that path and not on our own agenda. That's not always easy to discern. I mean, just look at Encounter. What do we do with Encounter this year, right? That was not an easy decision based on COVID-19 and how we deal with that. So that was a big thing we brought to prayer, right? And we landed on where we did. But also, as we move forward, how do we expand? Do we expand to other venues? We want to be careful. We don't want to get ahead of God, right? What He wants to do here, what He wants to do anywhere else. So again, pray for the ministry and keep things flowing. All right. So next thing, talk about connect. Reach out to your guys as you are led. And I'm saying as you are led. You don't want to be spamming them all the time throughout the week. But again, as you are led, encourage them to join you at your table for the next session. So I know a lot of guys here have a kind of a core group of ministry or men that you minister to week after week. And I think a lot of times the same guys sit at the same tables. So you know your circle, right? You want to send out maybe an email just sharing some relevant information, some good insight that you've maybe gleaned from the preparation to kind of tease them a little bit more and looking forward to coming and joining you this Friday. Then there's guys, that you just are meeting your neighbor, right? The guy at work is a good example, where, I might have invited him. And then, as we get closer to the Friday, I say, hey, man, just hope you can join me this Friday like we talked about. Just a quick tap and just kind of encourage them to join. I mentioned face-to-face. We don't do a whole lot right now, but at the same time, again, I remember going down through my office complex and, walking by the guy in the cube and say, hey, man, I hope you join me this Friday. Again, these are just little connections as you go, just kind of trying to encourage guys to join you. I put this down here at the bottom. Regardless of the approach you take, really make it a personal touch. I find that always best. Don't just spam everybody with a bunch of information and just kind of blast and hope it hits somebody, right? Really make a connection with the guy. Again, that takes relationships and time to build, but you want to make it a personal touch because that's truly what draws guys in to the ministry. So again, a personal touch is always best.
Will, on that.
Yeah.
We use GroupMe, which I was introduced to at Encounter. But that's a way when something just pops up during the week, somebody needs a quick prayer request, somebody needs some encouragement on something.
That's perfect.
So I would, our group isn't using it greatly, but we're getting there. And I just think it's a good tool.
Yeah, use all the tools you can. Well, thanks for chiming in because this is exactly where I was going to pause anyway and talk through these various components I just talked about, the invite, prepare, connect. You guys have any feedback or other thoughts or actually other tips or things that you do during the week that I might not have hit that you feel like that might be something worth sharing with the group? So thanks for that. That was perfect.